Oh,
Hi.
hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Shabnam. How
Ellie.
are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good.
See?
Can't see you very. Okay, that's much better. Because you were like your face wasn't quite in the frame. Because we want to see your beautiful
Oh,
face.
thank you.
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. It's been a busy morning, but I took some time out to take a few deep breaths before starting this session because I was like I wanted to be in the right frame of mind.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's always very important, right? I didn't believe that it works until I really did it. And every
Yeah,
time I do it, it really works. It changes our brain chemistry. Those deep,
yeah.
yeah.
It's the oxygen, I think, that pumps into your blood.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so great to have you with all of us in this session. And thank you so much for letting me have a chance to read your beautiful book, My Persian Paradox.
Thanks for reading it.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful story. And I'm just so excited to be sharing some bits of it with everyone today. And I thought the best way to start it off so that people have some context of what we're going to be discussing during the session is by you giving us just a brief synopsis of Persian Paradox, just an overview of what it's about.
Of course, sure. Thank you. Uh, I was 7 years old when the revolution happened in Iran, and I was little enough not to understand what was going on, but old enough to understand something was going on. And we had a lot of unexpected changes coming one after another one when basically the Islamic government took over. It really changed to a dictatorship. And then soon after that, the war between Iran and Iraq started. And I was just growing up with all these traumas that I didn't know, I didn't understand they were traumas. Um, Growing up under this kind of like male dominant and I don't want to use the word Islamic in a but with a negative
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, you got to be careful.
But
Like fundamentalists,
yeah, I want to use dictatorship, you know,
dictators. Yeah,
because Singapore, actually, a lot of people in Singapore are Muslim, but they have freedom. So
yeah,
not like, I don't want to use that word for negatively, but dictatorship, you know, growing up under absolutism and tyranny, and then the male dominant culture. I ended up having really unsuccessful marriages, very like big mistakes, unsuccessful marriages, and I have a daughter from my first marriage.
yeah,
And when I had my daughter, I was more serious about this whole challenge in the society. I was like, all right, I'm not the only woman here who is really facing all these unbearable challenges. Now my daughter's life is important too. So I started
yeah,
thinking about very early in my 20s. I started thinking about what can I do? And for a lot of people in Iran, one way is to just move out, just to leave the country. And of course, the culture in the West, the freedom that the West offers, is it's very attractive. And that's what I was trying to do. So in my own way, I found the way to come. It was through marriage, another wrong marriage. But at the time, the pressure is too much that, you know, you do a lot of mistakes. You make mistakes. And
yeah.
that's what I've learned about my life, how I look at it, how I see what the mistakes that I've made and why I made them. Um,
Yeah.
but I found my way to the United States in 2004. Uh, Now it's a little bit the sad part is I had to leave my daughter,
Yeah.
but eventually she came here and she's an independent.
You reunited. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was kind of like my story in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah, yeah. And for those of you who want to read the details, you got to get the book. I highly recommend it. My Persian Paradox. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you is, how different do you feel about whatever you went through now compared to when you actually were in the thick of it?
Yeah, you don't realize how difficult it is, but you know something is wrong. But you're trying to do the best you can, but you don't know the best you can. The best you know is far away from what really life can offer. It's a lot less than that. But the good thing is you still try. You still hope. You know something is wrong. You know you want to make a difference in your life. That's how you get through it. But no, I didn't know how bad it was. I just knew something was wrong.
Were you like in the survivor mode? Because it kind of reminds me of, have you heard of Viktor Frankl?
Yes.
The man who was in the concentration camp.
Yes.
During the Nazi regime. So it's kind of like when you're in the moment, you're just trying to survive and you're just trying to do the next thing to just make it. Do you feel that was the case for you?
That was exactly the case, and you just nailed it, because writing the memoir was actually a tool to help me to see that. I didn't know survivor mode. I didn't know as a survivor I was just feeling like a victim. I didn't know that I was doing a lot of selfish things just to survive. But it was just writing the memoir, putting the story in perspective, and looking at your past with a very different lens. That's what was helpful to me to see that how I did it.
Yeah. And is that what motivated you to write this memoir, because you wanted to relate differently to what happened to you in the past?
That's very interesting, because when I started thinking about it, somehow subconsciously I knew I wanted to write this story, not because I was an extraordinary person. A lot of immigrants they've done a lot of extraordinary things. I was just an ordinary person, an ordinary girl who survived, and I felt a lot of other people would be like me. They're out there like me, because 10% of people maybe can do extraordinary things, but many of us here, we don't have a voice. When I started, it actually started with a little bit of a storytelling with close friends. I just shared my stories because it was heavy on my heart. There are a lot of bitter stories. Like, I don't know how you would put it. I'd like to know how you look at it. But this book is not a happy book. There is hope in it. You can see the hope, but it's past, and it was just heavy on my heart. It was giving a sense of not feeling connected to life. But then I started sharing my stories with American friends, my friends here, after years, after 10 years of immigration. And there were two different things that really motivated me to write the book. One was how similar our experiences were. How could we share experiences, have similar experiences, being grown up in two different parts of the world with different cultures, and still feel the same pain. So it's like the human, the universal experience that I felt, that started connecting me to life. And the other thing was, there were a lot of things that people didn't know, like, I want to say as simple as if you carry a set of cards, playing cards with you on, you can be arrested for that. If you have
Really?
nail polish, you can be arrested for that.
A deck of cards?
Yes, yeah, that counts like as anti-Islamic rule. Yeah, it's just not allowed. Or
That I didn't know. I knew about the nail polish and makeup.
yeah,
But
just simple things that
yeah.
didn't know. And then when I was telling my stories, sharing my stories, they were like, wow, they were looking.
Yeah. That's like a different planet. Like what?
Exactly, yeah. So these two different things sounds paradox, and that's why I wanted to show all these paradoxes. You know, we are unique, we have unique experiences, but we are also very similar in different levels of life. And then I saw the paradox in me. I saw the paradox in each character of my story. And that really motivated me to start writing the story, because I wanted to see it differently, and I was so motivated to share it with others.
Yeah. But I think it's also, Shabnam, it's very brave. It's a brave thing to do, to write a memoir about these painful events that happened to you. And I think that's why a lot of people are a little bit scared or not comfortable with really excavating their past, and because in a way they're reliving trauma, or assuming that they went through trauma, or difficult memories that they really don't want to bring up again. So how did you get past that? Like, how did you say, okay, I'm going to walk through the pain and put pen to paper and just do this?
That's what, yeah, I always use this analogy. You know how if someone has like an injury on the skin, let's say like your skin burnt,
Yeah.
and if it's, especially if it's, you know, different levels, but if it's burnt deeply, the healing process is you have to scrub that burnt skin, allow it for the new skin to grow, and then it's very painful. And that's exactly how I felt every single time, every chapter that I wrote, every the draft and every new edition that I wrote. I cried. I talked to my counselor constantly. It was very
Oh, so you were getting counseling?
Yes, it was very important.
Good. Yeah.
And then I had a very good writing coach. She was asking me the right questions, but she was very patient with me. Like, she would send me a chapter back with many questions, and I was like taking like a month to just go through the questions, and she would just gently like, Shabnam, did you have a chance to work on it? I was like, you know, Martina, I'm not ready yet. It's just too painful. It took me a while, but when each chapter got closer to the publishing version, the later editions, I could see that new skin grow. I could see that, like, oh, you know, I see that character differently. It wasn't necessarily just like, oh, I was in an abusive relationship. I can see why he was doing what he was doing.
Yes.
What pain he went through to give me pain. And I can also, to be honest with you, see that how I gave other people pain. That survival mode that you mentioned, it's not just others. You see, when you write the memoir, you see that there is not a demon there's not an evil, or there's not, you know, like someone, the bad guy there. You see how the dynamic works. And the more that I saw that dynamic, that like, oh, actually my father himself had a very difficult childhood, or my mother was in a bad marriage, so what else did I expect, you know?
Yeah.
Except pressure. It's just,
you could connect the dots, basically.
Exactly. And it unfolds itself in a way that you see it differently. The narrative of your life starts changing, and then you don't see yourself as a victim who everyone wanted to abuse you. You see yourself as part of the bigger picture, that you know, everyone else did something wrong, but I also did something wrong too. And it was
Yeah.
the system. It wasn't me because I wanted to be mean. It wasn't, you know, my ex-husband because he wanted to be selfish, because the society was doing this to us. The culture was
Right.
doing this to us.
Right. So before you could actually be objective and really see things for what they are, you had to heal yourself. You had to deal with your emotions and the pain before you could get to that stage. And I think that's that's the approach people should take, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You said it very correctly. It's like a healing process, and a memoir, especially a memoir, but I want to be bold and expand it to fiction too. But when you are not, as a writer, when you are not ready, when you are not, when you don't know how to deal with your emotions, your characters don't come out as a whole character. They are just caricatures. They are just archetypes. You don't want to have archetypes in your book, especially memoir based on a real story. You want,
Really?
I'm sorry?
I said really because I always thought that every person would represent some kind of archetype, even in a memoir, a real life story.
There is a dominant,
You don't think that's the case?
I agree that there is a dominant archetype. You know, this person is just the person who fixes everything. But there are a lot of other aspects also to this person. You know, that's why that there is no demon, or there is not an evil in a memoir, because you can see how that person who was really mean to you had actually a very painful background, and that's where he or she was full of fears. And even if she had put a different face on and she showed a different archetype, when you dig down, you see behind the face, you see behind that archetype that, oh, there are a lot of other aspects that they do it even unconsciously.
Interesting. You know what this is reminding me of? I don't know how familiar you are with Disney movies, but recently, the past few years, they've been doing movies with past villains playing the main role, like Maleficent from The Sleeping Beauty, and now Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. And their approach is very interesting because they are showing the villain and in a very human way. They're showing that, see, this is why they became who they are. This is why they've become vengeful and mean, and because they had a bitter past, because they went through all those trauma. So I think storytellers at Disney is also, they're trying to change the narrative of these classic stories by making these movies where the evil guys are the main character.
Yeah.
Exactly, just to show us that there are different facets to
Yeah.
them, and they're not just born evil. It's, they're hurting. They're
Yep.
hurting inside.
Yeah, I agree. Exactly. Yeah. That's a great observation, because it's very important, especially for children, to start learning it differently, that, Cinderella wasn't a victim. Probably
Oh yeah.
her mother had a lot of issues herself. That's why she was so mean to her. So when you look at yourself from a different standpoint, that I wasn't the Cinderella, I was actually a person that was getting impacted by the society and impacting the society because of cultural norms, because of those invisible rules and untold laws or regulations that the society had, especially for a male-dominant society. It's not easy to go against the stream, and you just become part of it, whether it's a victimhood or it shows itself as a selfishness, or it shows itself as pity. Just you find yourself, the dynamic is really,
Yeah, because that's not you. That's not the real you. That's not the genuine side of you that's coming out, because you're under pressure, and when you're under pressure, you can't be you.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. And that's, I want to make sure that I mention two things here, because I know it could bring questions that how do you feel accountable? How do you take responsibility for what you've done? And when you start looking at yourself as a resilient person rather than a victim, that's when you start taking responsibility for the mistakes you make.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
I can say, I made a mistake too. Now I can say, oh my God, I was selfish too. But it's not when you look at yourself as a victim that everyone else is doing something bad to you, you don't have that
Power.
inner power. You haven't
Yeah, yeah,
your inner power to be able to say that.
yeah, yeah. I love that you say that. So owning your story means also owning the parts where you made mistakes and you hurt other people.
Exactly, exactly. Yes. You start owning it, and because you own it, it's not something outside of your head anymore. You start embodying it, and then you see yourself as a person who, let's say, let's just say, the hero's journey.
Yes.
Because if you want to put it in that formula, and formula is not the best word probably for it, because it's really like a way of feeling,
That narrative, you can say.
like, a thinking way that, when you look at it from the hero's standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
there was a calling, and for every single person. That's why I agree with you, and I believe that every person has many stories, and at least one important story, but or an important life story. But there was a calling, because that's when you feel like there is something I have to change. But then you want to change it, but there are so many stakes, there are so many challenges that you have to deal with. And when you start little by little reaching that inner power, you get to the point that people around you don't agree with you anymore. So it's like the second sets of states that, you have the awareness, you know the concept, you even started to practicing the concept, but
Yeah.
people around you now are against you, and then it takes another effort to start impacting the society around you, but it has ripple effect. And then at the end, when you look back, you see that, like, I changed something, I made a difference, and it was important.
Right. I love that you say that. And do you feel that whatever you've been through in the past, like reframing your past, did it help you make better decisions in the future about things you wanted to create and manifest in your future?
That's a great question. I feel like, I don't know if you see me. I hope you can see me. It's like the
I can see you.
okay.
I can see you, yeah.
Okay. Um, that's a very great question, because let me put it in this way. You really reframe the way that you look at your story. Um, the way that you start telling your story to yourself, it changes. It has kind of like a constructive mode in it now, that I can do it. And
Mm-hmm.
that makes you to be more curious about what else I can do, what
Mm-hmm.
limitations I can push. It Because of that type of new point of view that you build, it's very constructive, that it helps you to touch that inner power, to feel like I can do it. If I've done those things, I can do more. But if you
It gives you confidence, basically.
it does, it definitely
Yeah.
helps your self-esteem, uh,
Yeah.
to kind of like believe in yourself more, to see your self-worth. And it definitely helps you to make better decisions, to push more limits, to see that you have more capacity, and you can use more of your potential. That you
Yeah.
see that, oh, I'm not full potential, but I want to live fully, and I can do it because I've done it before.
Right, right. Um, and do you think anyone can write a story? Because some people listening to this will be like, I'm really bad at writing. I cannot write to save my life. So, I mean, you have experience in writing. You're very good. You're a very good writer. Um, so what would you say to those people who don't feel like they're very strong in the writing department?
I know, and I've heard that. And let me share this with you. When I started thinking about writing, I had no clue about writing. I was always an avid reader. I knew what a good writing is, but I didn't know how to write a good writing. Uh,
Yeah.
I personally have a long way to go, but the way that I started, I was like, if I can tell those stories, let me put them in words. You just start with, all right, I'm going to use it. I think it's um, I forgot the name of this very great author. She calls it the first shitty draft. It's
Okay.
like you,
Oh, was it Elizabeth Gilbert?
yes,
Maybe?
yes, yeah, I think so.
The lady who wrote Eat, Pray, Love?
No, no, not Elizabeth Gilbert.
Okay.
I think
Anyway,
I'm,
if anyone knows it, please comment. So,
yeah, but the first draft is you just complaining about everything, or you see
yeah,
from your narrow standpoint. That's okay. We can just put the words. You can just type it or put the pen on the paper and just,
journaling, right?
it's
Journaling.
journaling. It's
Yeah.
Journaling is therapeutic. Even if you want to keep it at that level, journaling is therapeutic. But
Yes.
the good thing about writing is you have a chance to have new versions. Every time that you edit it, you look at it from a different standpoint. It's not just editing your words or your grammar. Yes, you do that, but you also look at it from you dig down. You look at it more deeper. That like, why did I do that? Why did he do that? Why did she? Those whys and answering those questions, they make you, they help you make each edition a better edition. And at the end, it just helps you. It doesn't have to be published, but I'm sure a lot of people will be motivated to actually share their stories with their community.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if they find that it's going to be useful, and I think personally, I think everyone's story can teach. As I said earlier when I first started the session, I think everyone can teach something to somebody. You have the power to inspire somebody who might be going through the same thing you are, in some form or another.
Yeah,
So, I mean, yeah,
it's like I was so surprised when I started reading the book, going to book events and reading the book after it was published. I was so surprised to see all different types of feedback. A person like this lady coming at the end of the event, hugging me, that thank you so much for reading this part about your divorce in Iran. I'm going through divorce, and believe it or not, it's like very
yeah,
experience, although I have a lot of different freedom and rights here. So she felt not lonely, but there are other feedback, like in the other part of the spectrum, that like, oh my God, I had no idea that there are women still living like that. And I was like, and I wasn't the worst. There are still worse out there. And, it's like
hmm.
there is a lot more work to be done.
So you brought awareness to, what women in other part of the world, like what they're going through.
It's a
Yeah.
empathy. I always say people, the way that they actually started looking at me personally, it was like with a different view. It was like with more empathy, with more understanding, because they
Yes.
that personal story, the personal story really touches deeply.
Yeah. Because we human beings are storytellers. We connect through story. It really touches us on a deep emotional level.
That's the power of the storytelling. Storytelling is all about connection. It's all about bringing us together, giving us a chance to have more understanding. Like you actually get the chance to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree with you. And it's also a very spiritual endeavor, because your life has more meaning and purpose when you look back on the main themes and when you're able to connect every aspect of your story. Otherwise, it's just haphazard, and it's random events that happen to you. If you don't have that connectivity and make it a coherent story, it doesn't feel like anything. Life has no purpose or meaning. So I think story is really important to tie everything together so that you can see the bigger picture of your life and use that to inform what you do later in your journey.
Yes, yeah, you know, that purpose of life, and you get to see that there is a purpose for your life, and there is a purpose for everyone's life. Everyone is here for a reason, and no one should be underestimated, because everyone's purpose matters, everyone's impact matters, and there are so many unvoiced, invisible people out there. Basically 99% of people, you know, other than like 1% celebrities, there are so many people out there that if we hear their stories, it brings us more awareness, it gives us a bigger picture, it helps us to connect with other people, especially in this age that we are all, especially in the United States, I want to say, but I can see that other stories from Europe or from other parts of the world are coming out, that this is the era of knowing your identity, because every one person, every minority now is trying to gain that identity. People now know that they should not be underestimated. That's the awareness. But and with storytelling, you can actually bring that awareness even more. Like, you don't say just women in the Middle East. Every woman in the Middle East has a story, and they're actually very different. You can't just sweep all of them with one brush. It's for everybody. It's for everywhere. Every person.
Yeah, there are common universal themes that connect all of us, and I think story really brings that to the forefront.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what storytelling is all about, because you know, I mean, scientifically it's proven that when you are listening to a story or when you're reading this story, there are different hormones in your brain that it changes the chemical of the brain, and it makes you feeling connected with that person, with the storyteller, or with the characters in the story. And that connection is a universal human need. We all want to be connected.
Yeah, I remember when I went for a public speaking class, they said the power is in the story. If you want to connect with your audience, do it through story.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very happy about that because I'm not the best storyteller. I mean, I'm a good storyteller in writing, but to actually say it, I'm just like, oh no. But
You,
but yeah, I mean, storytelling is really connects us with people
yeah.
in such powerful ways.
You know, like, I'm listening to you, and you actually have anecdotes and little stories within what you were talking about, and I enjoy it. And what,
Oh, thank you.
of course, what I'm really thinking is, why don't we just bring a storytelling as a tool for better communication, even at
Yeah.
schools? You know, why don't we just teach our kids that, just simple, you know, there is a setup, there is a stake or a change that you are going to make, and there is a resolution, just a 3-act story, and just teach them.
Yeah.
Even thinking like, why don't we just teach people to do it at the dinner table? Why don't we, because when there is one good storyteller in the house, everyone wants to listen to that.
Oh yeah.
All try to do it, because 65% of the communications that people have is through stories, anecdotes, and gossiping. But if it's
Gossiping.
yeah, but if
That's the junk food of storytelling.
we look at other people with empathy, gossiping and judgment can drop, and it can become a better story. It really can connect people deeper.
Yeah. And there are different types of um, archetypes out there when it comes to framing our story, right? And I mean, I just Googled these and I came across a few. Overcoming the monster, that's like James Bond, Jaws, Star Wars. We see that theme in those movies. And then we got Rags to Riches, which is Cinderella, the Cinderella story, Aladdin. Then we got The Quest, which is Lord of the Rings, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Voyage and Return. I mean, there are so many of these templates. There are 7 actually. And there's comedy, there's tragedy, there's rebirth, and yeah, that's it. So I mean, if anyone wants to look it up, just Google the story archetypes and have a look at it. And they give some great examples of movies and classical novels that follow these kind of these narrative structures, and I think it can really inspire you to think about your own life story and if it matches any of these templates. What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly. I apologize. I don't know what everyone is doing in the other.
It's okay. I didn't know either. I just Googled it because I was curious, and I'm like, let's just share it with everybody, because sometimes they're like, okay, where do I start? So I think having inspiration of past from movies and pop culture can kind of get you thinking. Because for me, I got a lot of inspiration from Disney movies because I was a 90s kid and I watched a lot of Disney movies. So I really identified with a lot of these, these strong Disney characters like Mulan and
yeah, the heroes, the feminine heroes. Yeah, exactly.
The feminine heroes. I mean, at that time, I didn't know about all these goddesses, these goddesses that I know of now, all these Greek goddesses and Kali and the Hindu goddesses. But at that time, it was all about Disney movies for me. And that really helped me find a through line in my life and kind of see where my life is going and my place in the world and where I wanted to go, what I wanted to achieve.
Exactly.
It really helped me big time.
It's very inspiring, very inspiring.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone is familiar with Carl Jung school of thought.
Oh yeah, Carl.
And there is actually a writing class to create, especially for fiction, to create your characters based on different archetypes that Carl Jung explained as far as in the psychology. But I want to go further than that, because in a memoir you have different characters, but if you try to see what each character's main archetype is, that helps you a lot to understand that character, that where everything that he or she does come from. Because everyone has a main character, and then there are a lot of other archetypes that we have, like in the smaller version. But it actually, there is a writing class for that, and it helps a lot for both fiction and memoir.
Okay. And did it help you understand yourself better and your identity?
Yes. Overall, Carl Jung's school of thought has been helping me to get a lot more awareness about who I am, where I am standing in the world. Of course, it's a never-ending process. I don't want to make sound.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, we're all evolving. That goes without saying. Yeah. But you have come a long way, that's for sure.
Thank you. But it's definitely very helpful to learn about those archetypes and even look at people around you and see. I'm wondering if this is like the helping type of archetypes, like always want to be the one who wants to help, and how far does she go? And sometimes we are so powerful in that main archetype that we actually go too far, and we, like, let's say, like the helper. If I want to be a helper all the time, I could actually cross boundaries that people won't like it. They're like, oh, I didn't even ask for your help. So we could go too far. And it helps us to know ourselves and people around us, to see what type of people they are, what's their dominant characteristics in their characters.
Yeah. And that takes time, right? Because you have to look for the patterns to really figure out, to suss them out.
It's just baby steps, but step by step. And I want to say, writing a memoir, like everything else, is 3 steps ahead, 2 steps backward. And but overall, you move forward. It's like,
Yeah.
and there are those backward steps. We just need to stay there with hope and wait patiently for the positive force to come back. But it comes back.
Yeah. And did you feel like you had to learn a little bit about human behavior in general to understand all the strangeness and the abuse and the cause of abuse? Like, did you have to learn about, what's the word I'm trying to find?
Human behavior psychology.
Yeah, human behavior psychology to really understand. Like, for me, I was able to understand some of the main characters in my life. I'm not going to say who they are, when I understood the narcissistic type.
Yes, yes, that's a very
And I understood sociopaths.
right.
It's when I was able to really learn about that type, how they think, how they function in the world, was I able to say, okay, I can see why that happened and how it impacted me,
Yeah,
and how I somehow absorbed some of that. And not see myself as the victim. I think that's key. Like, if someone has been through a lot, been with difficult people, or they've been through oppressive situations, I think it's really important, as you said earlier, to not see yourself as the victim, right?
right.
So I think really understanding the psychology behind these characters in our lives makes it easier to see them for who they are, and really see the fullness of their character and how it plays out in your story.
Yes, that's a very good point. I ended up reading a lot of psychology books, writing that book.
There you go.
I had a very good writing coach, and she asked the right questions. You know, like the one that I remember, I was stuck for a while. She was like, "Why did you stay in that relationship?" And I didn't have an answer for it. I had to go through all different types of attachment. I had to read attachment theory.
Styles,
Yeah,
yeah.
why I stayed in an abusive relationship. It was eye-opening. So that's why it gives you a lot of awareness when you write your memoir. It's um, you see yourself from a different standpoint, but you also see other people. It's a lot of human behavior psychology behind it that you have to figure out. I had to read other books, other articles. But luckily, I love psychology, so it's always
Yeah, yeah, that definitely helps.
yeah.
Um, Someone right now who has been through a really tough past, and they're seeing themselves as a victim and someone who just could not control what happened to them. How can they reframe that and put a more positive, inspiring, and empowering twist to what happened to them? Is that possible?
Oh gosh, yes, you know. Um, when you start looking at yourself from a different standpoint, especially for people who went through traumas, and you see how you became more resilient, you see that those events, those traumas, those people around you, those are what made you who you are now. Um, and because they were victims of the society, you start looking at it differently. You start looking at it as building blocks. It's like those bad events actually, because they made me curious about the pain that I have in my heart. That was the path for me to get to more awareness. It's a very different look to it.
Okay. So,
Not come as complete forgiveness, but it definitely starts the forgiveness process too.
by writing it down and
Yeah, Yeah. Because when you
Okay.
write it down, you start editing it, you start answering all those good questions that the editor asked. Yeah, you start thinking about it very differently. And you definitely start forgiveness, the forgiveness process, forgiving yourself and forgiving others. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of a really nice tool that I learned from Julia Cameron. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've heard of her. She wrote this amazing book called The
Yeah.
Artist's Way, and she's wrote other books as well. She's written other books and she she has this exercise called the morning pages where you wake up early in the morning and you just write. You just kind of, you know, throw anything out onto the page and just keep writing and writing and writing and writing. Don't even like edit it. Don't even think about what you're writing. And that, in a way, she says, clears your filters and opens the doorway for more clarity and more truth to come out. So that is one tool that people can use.
You know, I that's very interesting because I also had a class that it was writing and yoga together. And the yoga would start with a meditation, but the beginning of the class started with just write everything you have in your mind, because that comes out of that all inner voice, the chatterbox that we have inside that we
Exactly. The inner critic, yeah.
yeah, that all comes out, and then you have a better, more quiet mind that you can start doing yoga and meditation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly for writing too, but in a different way, because you just write all those words that come to your mind. You try to quiet your mind, and then later when you look at it, you just delete 75% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're processing it. You're
exactly.
processing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Okay, so one last question
Sure.
for you, Shabnam. What is it that you want people to take away from your story as a person and as a writer?
I want, it has become a mission for me. I want people to know storytelling is a tool that can connect people in a different way, closer, in an intimate way, that we can actually understand each other and have that empathy feeling for each other. Because empathy is really a source that we have, but we are not using it. And it can help a lot of the conflicts in this world. As you know, little ones in our family member or big ones between nations, empathy can be used a lot more. And storytelling is a very, very effective way to create that empathy.
Okay, so storytelling in a way can heal the world.
It really can be one of the most important tools that, yes, even countries, nations can use it to see each other in a different way.
In a different way. Beautiful, love it. Um, does anyone have any questions before we close the session? Thank you so much for being here with us, by the way. But if you have any questions for Shabnam or for me, anyone? No one? Okay. If you have questions later, you can always get in touch with us. And yeah, that's a wrap. Shabnam, thank you so much. It was so nice to talk to you. And again, I absolutely love your story, My Persian Paradox. I have such a close kinship. I have a sense of kinship with the Persian Iranian people because, as I told you, my mom used to work for an Iranian bank, and she used to bring Iranian food for me, and I used to absolutely love it. The rice and kebabs, and it was just so delicious. And one of my closest friends is Iranian, so her name is Shadi. Hi, Shadi, if you're listening to this later. So yeah, I just have a great love for your people.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and take care, and I'll see you in another Live with Celine. Bye.